And so week begins. No secret that I am Bucks County proud. So thrilled to talk about Parks Casino. Can you imagine a more perfect place other than being at the game itself to watch the Sixers last night and the Beard? We're talking the number one casino in all of Pennsylvania, which happens to be liners at the Excite Center, the open air Liberty Bell Beer, Parks Grill Steakhouse, the Bamboo, Noodle House TC, just a couple of the outstanding restaurants. Which is your choice, by the way?
I'm going with the noodles today.
Yeah, I figured.
Yeah.
Action, excitement, live entertainment. It's a destination. It's Parks Casino. Time now for the headlines from Smerconish.com, the newsletter. I've got to go straight to the polling department today. Do you remember that last Thursday I had a Johnny Depp Amber Heard question as the survey question? I was really asking who's going to win, but I worded it poorly, and we only had, there was a day we would have killed for this many votes, but we only had 5,289 votes on Thursday. So Friday, I was here and I said, I'm not giving up yet. I'm going to rephrase what I'm after. And this time I'm going to ask, does the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial ultimately help or hurt Depp's career? Well, we boosted it 1,000 to 6,389 votes on that question. Wait until you hear where the voting went thereafter. But I have to say this, 66% and change, 2/3 said it's going to hurt Johnny Depp's career, that all this dirty laundry is coming out. So on Saturday, I had a crisis management expert from Hollywood named Howard Bragman as my guest. I thought he was great. Many people appreciated the fact that he had a dog behind him.
People were obsessed with the dog, and they wondered if it was a still shot because the dog
Till it moved
because the dog was so still. I was completely I kept an eye on the dog the whole time.
Wait until you hear this. So as is my custom, I said, and so Mr. Bragman, the expert, said, I said to him, will Johnny Depp ever eat in this town again? That was my question.
Right.
And he said, yeah, he's going to be fine.
No problem.
He's going to be fine. It might not be Disney, but he will get work. And he is presenting himself as the authentic Johnny Depp in contrast to Amber Heard. That was his opinion. Here's the part I wanted to tell you, TC. So as is my custom, post-show, I send an email to each one of my guests. Hey, thanks so much. You were terrific. In his case, he writes back and he says, keep my number. Well, he didn't mean it as a guest. He's like a crisis management guy.
What, as like a just in case?
He says, keep my number. And then I think this is the way he signs all of his emails. He says, the first call is free.
Wow. Wow.
I hope I don't need him.
As a just in case. I love it.
All right. Saturday survey question. Now we're talking 29,189 votes. Is the U.S. sharing of military intelligence with Ukraine worth the risk of further inflaming Putin? 94% of those who responded said, yes, it's worth the risk. Well, I'm talking about this extensively on today's program, but today's the day, and it's already happened. Today is the day that in Red Square, Vladimir Putin has a military parade, celebrates the victory over the Nazis. That victory parade has already taken place. It's significant for what didn't happen today, meaning there was no declaration of formal war. Why is that significant? Because if Putin had made a formal declaration of war against Ukraine, then he could have called up more military support, didn't do that, and there wasn't nuclear saber rattling. But nevertheless, there's reason to really be concerned about what's going on in Ukraine with Russia. I have to say that I appreciated two groups of visitors. The First Lady spent Mother's Day. Kudos to Jill Biden for meeting with Ukraine's First Lady in Ukraine on Mother's Day. I thought that was really cool. And if you want to check something else out at Smerconish.com today, I recommend that you look at the Rolling Stone link because Bono and Edge played a surprise acoustic set in a Kyiv bomb shelter, which I thought was really, really great. According to the Irish Times, the set included performances of U2 hits With or Without You, Desire, Angel of Harlem, Vertigo, and a rendition of Benny King's Stand By Me that replaced the titular Me with Ukraine. Okay. But back to the issue of the saber rattling. Thomas Friedman has a piece in the New York Times that ran over the weekend that I highly recommend. And let me quote from it. Friedman says this, and first of all, the setup is to say, and this is what I was talking about on CNN on Saturday. The setup was to say that U.S. intelligence led to the taking out of many, we don't know precisely the number, but 12 Russian generals have been killed in Ukraine. Most, it seems, based on intel that we provided. And the Moskva ship that was sunk, apparently with our intel as well. Hey, I'll tell you something interesting. So in the overnight Friday into Saturday, there were reports, internet reports, and images of a smoldering something at sea. There were reports that another ship had been taken out, Russian ship, presumably with our intel. So it's now, 5 a.m. on Saturday, and I'm talking to Catherine, my producer at CNN, and I said, this fits perfectly with the conversation that I want to have, which is, are we going too far in supplying the intel? Remember, we weren't going to give the MiG fighters. We do give the equipment. Now we're giving intel. Like, where is the line? Anyway, she said to me, you can't go with that story because CNN reporting has not confirmed it. And indeed, now here we are on Monday. It's nowhere. Glad I didn't do it. But the general reporting is out there. Our intel killed the generals or led to the killing of the generals. That's from the New York Times. NBC's coverage was about the Moskva. So taking that into account, Friedman says this. As a journalist, I love a good leak story. And the reporters who broke those stories did powerful digging. At the same time, from everything that I've been able to glean from senior U.S. officials who spoke to me on the condition of anonymity, the leaks were not part of any thought-out strategy, and President Biden was livid about them. I'm told he called the Director of National Intelligence, the Director of the CIA, and the Secretary of Defense to make clear in the strongest and most colorful language that this kind of loose talk is reckless and has got to stop immediately before we end up in an unintended war with Russia. And then, says Friedman, the staggering takeaway from these leaks is that they suggest we are no longer in an indirect war with Russia, but rather edging toward a direct war, and no one has prepared the American people or Congress for that. So, put it all together. In the Saturday question, I'm saying kind of risky to be directly providing intel that is used to kill Russian generals. Is the risk of inflaming Putin worth it? And 94% of, let's call it 30,000 voters said, yeah, it's worth it. And Friedman is saying, be careful, we're getting close. Today's survey question is similar. I'm asking if you agree with Tom Friedman that the U.S. is no longer in an indirect war with Russia, but rather edging toward a direct war. That is the question. I hope you'll go to Smerconish.com and you will cast a ballot on it. Yesterday, TC, we had 10,000 votes on this one. Do protests outside the homes of Supreme Court justices cross the line of propriety? I think they do. I imagine you think they do.
I do think they do. And I think also that I was glad, though, that people might not want to vote on Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, but they didn't leave us.
No.
They just didn't
ignored
vote that
us.
day. And then they came right on back. So thank you. We appreciate
Right. There
it.
will not be another Johnny Depp Amber Heard
think
question at Smerconish.com.
No.
But
You'll still weigh in on it from time to time.
But you make
a
really good observation. It's not as if they didn't come back the following day.
No, they didn't desert us, and we appreciate that. But yeah, the protest in front of the homes, go protest at the Supreme Court. If you would like to protest, that's where the protest should be.
Yeah, show up at their workplace, not at their home.
Exactly.
And by the way, I think, and if you say, no, this issue, this abortion issue, this right to life issue or pro-choice issue, however you categorize it, is of such importance that you've got to go to their house, then let me say this, you're losing the court of public opinion. You will turn people off. It reminds me of Sarah Huckabee Sanders when she went out to eat with her family. Do you remember this while she was still White House press secretary?
It was somewhere in Virginia, so outside of D.C., one of these farm-to-table places. Yeah,
and I'm like, you're hurting your cause.
Right.
Same thing.
Right.
So 58.41% agree with what I'm saying. Do protests outside the homes of Supreme Court justices cross the line of propriety? 58% said they do. Two headlines at Smerconish.com today. One of them is from Mediaite. The second is from CNN. In my notes, I wrote, how can both be true? They are on the abortion debate, and one of them says this: overturning Roe more likely to help Democrats than Republicans by double. Okay? That's a poll which says, wow, are the Democrats ever going to benefit from this? That's the Mediaite coverage. It's a YouGov poll that was just published. Respondents were asked, if the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade, would that make you more likely or less likely to vote? 47% of Democrats said more likely, 42% no change. For Republicans, it was only 25%. So by the result of that survey, it sounds like, if the opinion comes out at the end of June, the way we anticipate, big boost for the Ds. Hold on. CNN survey. The Supreme Court draft opinion on Roe versus Wade hasn't shaken the midterm election. And then it says that if you go on to compare the results of a new poll with one that was conducted immediately before the revelation of the draft opinion, the impact on the political landscape heading into the 2022 midterms appears, quote, fairly muted. So, who knows? Who knows how the abortion issue is cutting, because the data so far is both ways. My own view is, given this 24/7 news cycle, we have no idea what's to come. So it's impossible to determine. My home state of Pennsylvania, I keep saying, watch our Senate race, watch our gubernatorial race. The Senate race could determine the balance of power in the entire United States Senate, where there's a 50-50 deadlock, where Pat Toomey, the Republican incumbent, is not running for re-election. Well, over the weekend, how about this? Connor Lamb, the congressman from Western Pennsylvania, who is in the mix with John Fetterman and Kathy Barnett, got the endorsement of the Philadelphia Inquirer. And the reason he got the endorsement is they said pretty much the Democratic candidates. Wait a minute. Did I say Barnett? Barnett's a Republican. I have her on the brain for reasons I'll get to in a moment. Fetterman is the lieutenant governor in Pennsylvania. Connor Lamb is the congressman. They are vying, and Malcolm Kenyatta, but the top two are vying for the Democratic nod. In endorsing Connor Lamb, the Philadelphia Inquirer said there's really not much of a difference among the Democrats in terms of where they stand. But given the stakes, you got to pick somebody who's going to win. And Lamb is the guy who can win. So, which is who's been saying all along.
You have.
Me.
But I'm not sure I agree with you. I think Fetterman could win.
You do? Well, I think he could win. I'm not ruling him out, because he might be running against Dr. Oz.
Which is
all bets are off.
All bets are off.
All bets are off. It's
right.
A clown car.
Oh no.
It's a clown car. Okay, but I wanted to say this.
But there's more.
Now I want to tell you why I have Kathy Barnett on the brain.
Yes.
Kathy Barnett is African-American female running as a Republican for the U.S. Senate. All the conversation you've heard from me thus far has been about Dr. Oz and Dave McCormick. You know Oz. McCormick's the hedge fund guy. They are spending boatloads of money in the Republican primary. Trump endorsed Dr. Oz. Dr. Oz came out at a Trump rally Friday night that was a mud fest. A lot of the voters there turned their back on Oz. It's very interesting to see whether Trump can do for Oz in Pennsylvania what he did for J.D. Vance in Ohio. Unclear. I went back and forth with Robert Cahaly this weekend. Robert Cahaly, the pollster, who I think did better than most anybody else in both 2020 and 2016. Cahaly, especially among Republicans, has some bona fides. He said to me, and I'm discussing this only because it's now ended up in Twitter, but Cahaly said to me, don't rule out Kathy Barnett. That Barnett, despite being underfunded, is really in the same tier now with Fetterman and Oz. She could win that race.
Wow.
And one of the reasons why she's winning, or not winning, but one of the reasons why she's elevated in this race, it was just in 2020 in suburban Montgomery County, she ran for Congress and had her clock cleaned. But now she's back, and as a Republican running for the Senate, is putting up a viable race. Why? because evangelicals in Pennsylvania are enthused. And Barnett is a beneficiary of that enthusiasm, and so too is Doug Mastriano. He's running for governor. And something I don't have time to get into this now, but something really interesting is taking place. Josh Shapiro is the Attorney General of Pennsylvania running without opposition. He's the Democratic nominee. He wants Mastriano as an opponent. And he is running a television campaign right now, highlighting Mastriano and doing so in a way that seemingly is condemning of him. But the things that he's saying about Mastriano are intended to elevate him among Republican voters. Do we have this? Okay, listen to this and listen carefully and tell me, what exactly is Josh Shapiro saying about Republican Doug Mastriano?
This is Republican State Senator Doug Mastriano. He's the Republican who's ahead in the polls for governor. He wants to outlaw abortion. It's Mastriano who wrote the heartbeat bill in Pennsylvania, and he's one of Donald Trump's strongest supporters. He wants to end vote by mail, and he led the fight to audit the 2020 election. If Mastriano wins, it's a win for what Donald Trump stands for.
Okay, on the surface, you're hearing this and you're saying, wow, man, maybe you're hearing this and you're saying, we don't want him. Or are you hearing that and saying, he's a Trump guy? He's pro-life? He wants to do away with that ballot fraud issue? In other words, it's Shapiro actually trying to help Mastriano among Republican voters because he wants to run against him. Will Bunch has a good take on this today in the Philadelphia Inquirer, saying, hey, Shapiro, be careful what you wish for. Because what if it's Kathy Barnett and Mastriano and they both win? Holy smokes, would that be a thunderclap? I am highly recommending, at Smerconish.com in the newsletter, I try and limit only one story per outlet a day. So I try and only give you one thing from the Washington Post, if I use the Washington Post at all. I try and give you only one thing from CNN, one thing from Fox News, one thing from NBC, et cetera, because the whole purpose of Smerconish.com, the newsletter, is balance delivered daily. And yet today, there are 3 different links from the New York Times, unavoidable. I wanted you to see the Tom Friedman piece where Friedman says, be careful. It's the survey question today. We are no longer in an indirect war with Russia. We are edging toward a direct war. Friedman, you got to read it. On today's program, Matt Flegenheimer from the Times with this enormous story about Ed Koch. Ed Koch, the long-serving mayor of New York City, always rumors, always speculation that he was gay. He went to his death denying that was the case. The Times, in an enormous story, outed him over the weekend and said, and my take was, it was just a sad story. Some are debating the propriety of having done that. I thought it was really wonderfully researched and written. Did you have a gut check on their having done so?
It's interesting. I thought the same thing. I just think it's terribly sad, because I just think if you can't live your truth or be who you are in your heart, in your soul, in yourself, then that is
you want him to be
sad.
happy.
Yeah,
you want him to be happy.
And it seemed that from their reporting, that him not having a partner he felt was his greatest failure in life, which I just thought was very sad.
You have to read it. You'll need 20 minutes to do so, 25 minutes to do so. It's phenomenal. Yeah. Really well done. Okay. Final recommended item today. And it's a third piece from the Times, but I got to go where the content takes me. Matt Richtel was on my program on POTUS and on CNN last week. He's a Pulitzer Prize winning New York Times reporter. He has spent more than a year looking at the mental health crisis among teens and young adults in America. His second installment was published online over the weekend. I sent him a personal note and I said, Matt, this is so important, the things that you're writing about. And now, page 1 today, enormous coverage above the fold of the print edition of the New York Times. Headline, A Swamped System suicidal teens are kept for days in the ERs. And it's about emergency rooms across the country being overrun by young Americans who are there because of anxiety, depression, and fear of suicide, parents distraught, ERs incapable in many instances of providing the treatment. And I sent a note to Matt over the weekend that I said, bravo on what you're doing, highlighting this issue. I wish a politician would champion this cause. And then I explained to him why I thought it was ripe for that. Talked about how Chris Christie had a fleeting moment of fame when he last ran for president, when he talked about opioid addiction. And all of a sudden, like the light switches got thrown all across the country. People are saying, yeah, somebody needs to talk about it. Same issue with this. And I said to Matt, you've got to write about the insurance dynamic of this, about how an insurance company will pay for a pill, but so many psychiatrists opt out of being reimbursed that there are very few practitioners out there for people who are not of means. And I think I caught his eye with that. He probably was already on that subject. So Friedman, for sure, Flegenheimer, Matt Richtel, 3 great pieces from the Times. I can't do anything about the paywalls, but they're all in Smerconish.com, the newsletter. Please make sure that you are subscribed, as so tens of thousands of people are and really getting value from it. And vote on today's survey question about Tom Friedman having said, we're no longer in an indirect war with Russia. We are edging toward a direct war. Do you agree with that? Thank you so much for being subscribed and paying attention to Smerconish.com.